Ah, hello there, and welcome to a brand new Parry's Pickups. Look what I've just picked up. It's only 9 PS2 games. Yeah, I bought 5 of these recently. The other 4 have been sitting around for a while, and I may have talked about them on Tom Matt Attack, the podcast that I co-host, but I haven't talked about them on here. So today we're going to go through all these, starting with Downhill Domination. Of course, for the PS2, as they all are. Downhill Domination, right. So, this game I saw online. I think it was an episode of GameSack on YouTube, and it was recommended. It's a good PS2 game. And it is a good PS2 game. It's a racing game where you're on mountain bikes. Great stuff. And the tracks are phenomenal. Really amazing. The variety in them, the detail in them. It's amazing how the game actually works so well because the tracks are very. There's not really a set path, so to speak. There are occasionally, but you can sort of negotiate your own way down these downhill tracks. And there's all sorts of crazy obstacles there. Sometimes you're racing down volcanoes, or there's animals that are getting in your way, or cars, or the game certainly doesn't take itself seriously. This is an extreme sports game in every sense of the word. I found the tricks a little hard to do. Otherwise, the actual controls are rather good. The bike handles as you would expect it to. It all feels very natural and very fun. But the game does have a few issues. It's got a weird sort of difficulty level to it where it's incredibly easy. I'm talking only about the arcade mode here. It's the only mode I played through. The only mode I had time to play through because it's 13 races long, I think, and each race can be sometimes up to 5 minutes or more in some cases. Whereas a couple of races are only about a minute long. That's weird. There's only like 2 that are like a minute long. So it takes a long time to get through this arcade mode. And it's really easy. I finished first in every race, apart from the last one, which I found so odd. I mean, the game lacked... The most challenging thing was negotiating the courses, because there was a lot of obstacles in your way. The races, beginning of the race, you could zip past them, and the cool mechanic the game has of beating the other racers off the bikes is kind of... It becomes a bit void in the end, because you're not really racing alongside them for most of the race. You're racing ahead of them. And you do tricks, which, apparently you can jump, which I could do fine. Bunny hop up, jump off big ramps and such. You're meant to press L2, L1, R1, R2 to do tricks, but with a combination of stick movements. But it'll happen so fast, it's quite hard to actually get the tricks in, I find at least. And the bonus of doing the tricks is to upgrade your attacks. And as I say, the attacks don't really have much purpose if you're not racing alongside the other racers. Yes, you can punch pedestrians and such who are also on the track, but it doesn't really give you any bonuses. There's a few power-ups to pick up along the way and such, really help you along, like a bit of stamina, because you tap the button twice and hold it down to accelerate. You run out of stamina after a while, so you do end up going a bit slower. But yeah, the challenge from the other races isn't there. Very weird on that last track where I could not finish any better than 4th. The whole game I finished 1st by a mile. 4th, I could not get any better than 4th on that last track. And the last track was like no other tracks in the entire game. It was in a city, which, like a modern city in the US, New York perhaps. But I don't know. I really don't know, because it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, because the gameplay was good, the graphics are great, the track designs are great, the main character is a bit irritating. This guy who I played as is apparently British, but he sounds very Australian to me. But that weird difficulty spike on the last track, and because of this, because I could only finish 4th on the last track, I won 4th overall. Despite winning 12 of 13 races first place, the fact that I couldn't get better than 4th in the last race meant I placed 4th on the podium. Yeah, for everything that it does right, it ends up being a ultimately disappointing experience, at least in arcade mode. It makes me reluctant to go back to it to experience the other modes, to be honest. I imagine this is probably more fun in 2-player, actually. But I haven't had a chance to try that yet. In fact, apparently it does say on the back 1 to 2 players, but then it does say 4-player multiplayer. So, that's interesting. I've tried it out, but there's a lot of courses and a lot of time and effort that's put in these courses, and they're really great. And it's probably a game worth trying, but it's odd. Next up is a game which I recommend wholeheartedly. That one's Speed Kings, which is a wonderful racing game developed by Climax, who have done a lot of the MotoGP games. Talked about this again on the podcast a little bit, but it's a solid racing game with a couple of unique mechanics. If you build up enough power, you can do special moves, and these special moves allow you to do things like slide under trucks, which sometimes obstruct the race, the track, sorry. And it just handles really well and is really fun to play. It's fast. The graphics aren't anything really to write home about, but they're solid. This game's also available on the GameCube as well, but the PS2 version is slightly cheaper to get hold of. This one was picked up in Horsens, the second-hand shop there here in Denmark, as well as that last one, Downhill Domination. There are a couple of games I've been looking for a while, so yeah, you can usually rely on Climax to deliver a solid game, and this is a solid motorbike racing game, where the bikes feel that they've got a little bit of weight to them, and it handles like you'd expect a motorcycle game to handle. But it is a rather arcade experience, which is just solid all around, so I recommend this game a lot. Next up, we got Freaky Flyers, which is a racing game, aerial-based racing game. So you're flying around in planes, and it's fun. It's like a karting game in the air. You know, you've got fun, larger-than-life characters, weapons, and yeah, I've played this only very briefly, but it seems like it's okay. I wouldn't say it's a must-play, not quite on the same level as something like Speed Kings. But it's solid. It's made by Midway. You know, you can usually expect a good game from them. I really quite liked it, but not amazing by any means. But I like the characters and such. They were good. I'm going to move these games up here because I'm putting this having them down there. I need to get them in easy reach. What do we got next? Aha, we have a golf game. It is Swing Away Golf. Swing Away Golf is really good. If you see this and think that maybe it's an older PS2 game for one, from 2000, so this is extremely early, but it's a very good golf game, and what I really like about it is the encouragement you get from your caddy in this game. She really gives you very helpful tips and tricks of how to get the best out of the hole that you're playing on. And the actual golf mechanics themselves are really solid, nice visuals, solid golf game. I'd recommend this, it's very good. Next up, we have Deadeye Dream, a game that myself and fellow podcaster Matt Boyle played many moons ago and really quite enjoyed it. You can't see it actually on the front there, but if you just slide the case out there, this is a Phoenix game, and Phoenix aren't really a publisher that usually releases great games. This isn't going to set your world on fire. This isn't the greatest thing you've never played, but it's a solid arcade game, similar to something like, I'm not going to compare it exactly to something like Wild Arms or something like that, but it's a similar gallery-based shooter where you play as the character Deadeye Jim from a perspective where you can see the characters from the back. Enemies will pop out and shoot at you. You can dodge out of their way. put your little reticle over them to shoot them. You know, it's that kind of simple game, but everything about it's very satisfying, and it's just that kind of one more go addictive arcade style to it. Visuals are anything to write home about, but you know, it does add a bit of variety in there with the ability to pick up shot. Actually, not so if it's a shotgun, but a machine gun. You definitely get a machine gun at one point. I don't know. The gameplay's simple and satisfying, and it's got a reasonable challenge. You can get power-ups as well as you kill the enemies. Good. If you can find this cheap, I think you can get some fun out of it. So, Deadeye Dream, don't be put off by the Phoenix Games logo on there. It's pretty good. And next up, we have a game that I was playing a little bit this morning, actually. So it's very, very fresh. I'll take these stickers off. Very fresh in my mind. That is Ghost Rider, again developed by Climax, who did Speed Kings. This does feature motorcycle racing, although I wasn't able to get up to that. I imagine that part of the game is incredibly solid. The rest of it is sort of like God of War, I have to say. It's not the most original thing. You move from area to area, defeating enemies, defeat the enemies to get to the next area. But it plays fine. I mean, this isn't a bad game by any means. It's just, you know, it's a typical formula, and it doesn't really do much to kind of step away from that type of game. You do have a shotgun. That's a bit different. You have the chain, of course, and that's got God of War. One of your attack buttons, usually the chain, the next is an uppercut. The other, you also have, as I say, the shotgun. You have a jump. And you can jump and attack, and you can do various combos to defeat your enemies. Some enemies have a shield. If you can do enough combos, you can break that shield and defeat the enemy. That was, I guess, a more unique gameplay mechanic that really encouraged you to do lots of different combos, which was kind of cool. You're playing in hell in this game, so just to give you some backstory to it. Ghost Rider has been sent to hell. The character is introduced through some cutscenes at the start of the game. It isn't based on a movie, although it does open with a Columbia little ident at the start. So you think from the beginning, oh, this is going to be a game of the movie. But you play as Johnny Blaze. You don't play as Nicolas Cage Johnny Blaze because they don't have the rights to the likeness, I don't think, in this game. So you play as a guy who sort of looks like Al Pacino, actually, in the cutscenes. But eventually you become the Ghost Rider, and you're sent to hell, and you have to fight through rather generic demons, and eventually get to do some motorcycle stuff. But I had a major annoyance, and I have a major issue with this game. If you die, you revert back to the start. I think it would seem that from the pause menu you can save the game, but the game doesn't tell you that it doesn't save automatically. You assume that it's going to save at least at a checkpoint. I played up to what I thought was probably the first boss. Had a large health meter anyway, and it's quite big. And died. Okay, well, it's going to take me back to the last checkpoint. No, it took me back to the beginning of the game. That's about, I don't know, 25 minutes gameplay there. So I should probably be saving in this game. Now I know, but I think that could be a little bit more user-friendly. Is it a recommend? You know, I feel like this game's slightly overlooked because it is a fairly competent 3D brawler-type game, which I'm imagining has some pretty cool motorcycle segments in it. But it's nothing to shout about. If you've played God of War, I mean, you might as well just stick with that. But, you know, it's an interesting curiosity not many people talk about, and it's a fairly solid game, albeit a little generic, with a really bad implementation of a save game. Next up, we have a racing game. This one's called Road Rage 3, and it's again another Phoenix game. This was an earlier title, 2001. You can see it in the graphics. It's not particularly amazing to look at. Screenshots don't look so bad, but it is published by Atlas. I think developed by Cave, I think, and then published outside of Japan by Phoenix, or co-published perhaps. Initially, yes, it looks underwhelming. The car's a manual transmission at the beginning. If you jump into a quick race, you have to change that in the menus to select automatic transmission. It's slightly off-putting if you're used to most driving games, which don't force you to change the gears. But yeah, you can change it to automatic. It's just there's not really a lot to shout about here. So you only get Japanese car manufacturers. That's fine. I mean, it's a Japanese game. Visuals are below par. Handling is a bit weird, but not bad by any means, but not maybe as good as I was hoping for. I always find it interesting how it's called Road Rage 3. I don't think Road Rage 1 or 2 exists, because this game goes by another title in Japan. It's the third in the installment of the series in Japan, but I don't know if we got the first two. But that's Road Rage 3. Yeah, give it a miss, I'd say. Next up, we have a Need for Speed game, much better than Road Rage 3, and that game is Hopsuit 2, which you may have played. It's an older PS2 game, but it looks astounding when you put it side by side next to Road Rage 3. Beautiful visuals, actually. Great gameplay. Tracks are quite long. They do take a while to play through, but there's a challenge there. It's all very well balanced. Nice selection of cars, lovely graphics, great soundtrack. It's one of them EA Tracks games, so it's got loads of licensed songs in it, which suit the racing pretty well, I'd say. Better than I was expecting. I did not expect this game to be actually that good, because I always think the beginning of the PS2 era Need Speed games was Underground. Of course, this came before Underground. This was apparently the first game that Black Box did for EA. And Black Box have proved themselves to be a very competent developer of racing games. They did most of the Need for Speed games from the PS2 to maybe even all the PS2 to the end of PS3 360. Actually, no, they didn't, did they? Because Criterion took over midway through the PS3 360 lifespan. But they did games like Pro Street and Carbon, both Underground games. Undercover, The Run, I think was the last Need for Speed game they did. They're a good studio. They can make very good racing games. This is a very good racing game. It's got a few modes on there. You can be the cops, but that seems very short mode, that one does. You can kind of just play on one track, I think, and it's not like it's a series of subsequent challenges. It's a one-off, like a quick race, and you have like 4 cars that you have to take down, and you can call in things like roadblocks and helicopters to help you, but I didn't really see that being visualized on screen. I was able to take down the cars, and yeah, that was fun. Nice to have it there. But the meat of the game is a World Tour sort of championship mode. But there just seemed to be a lot of other little bits and pieces here and there, things to unlock and such. So this game had me playing for quite a while. I would recommend Hopsuit 2 if you like racing games. It's a really solid one. And finally, I decided to get NFL Street 3. Because I'd like to get to grips with NFL games, and I feel that's something I've never really got the hang of. I thought the Street series might be the one that would convert me. And yes, on the surface it is a little simpler, more accessible in a similar way to something like NFL Blitz. And yes, it is a little bit more accessible than Madden, for instance, or the 2K series, for sure. And it does do its own unique things. There's a style meter that you've built up by holding down L1 as you do a normal move. Will enable you to do a stylish version of that move, build up the meter. You get more powerful versions of the moves. by holding down L2 you unleash these larger than life powerful versions. You can do things like wall run, which is crazy. You walled off areas, you see, so you can wall run. You can jump really high and double jump, and yeah, it's definitely does what it intends to do. You know, it larger than life American football. But then I tried playing just a regular kind of quick match, and then you're faced with all sorts of things like formations, and yeah, it's difficult for someone who doesn't know the sport to get into. And I do think from my experience now playing a lot of NFL sort of type games that if you don't know American football, it really is an uphill struggle to play any of them because it's just not something that is familiar to you. It assumes you like American football in order to play these games. So thinking you might gain an appreciation of the sport through playing these games, for me, doesn't really work out. Because I think you've already got to have that before going into a game version for it to be, for it to be a pleasant, easy experience. But yeah, this makes it a little bit more easy to pick up and play, but still, I struggle with it. Well, there we go. That's NFL Street 3. Probably really good if you know American football. And that brings me to the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been very PS2 centric. In fact, completely PS2 this week. Hope you've enjoyed that. Let me know if you like these kind of all one format videos. It's kind of cool, I think, to theme them every now and again if I have the opportunity to do that. This is going to be the last one from Denmark for a little while, as I'm going back to the UK for a short time. So that means there'll be a greater variety in games because the ones that I'll show you in the UK are ones I mostly picked up off eBay. So there'll be some interesting games, I think, to share with you there. So yeah, thanks again, and until next time, game on.